And so, something always fills the void, and that's what happened. In the medical profession, even back in the 1970s and 1980s when I was growing up and listening to Uncle Sam's stories, before the age of HMOs and universal health care, if you were black, you had a black physician in your community. You probably paid him in cash. And because he had a steady stream of clients, he tended to make a pretty good living. But today, over 28% of African Americans reported that they could not locate a black primary care physician without even considering a need for a referral to a specialist. And even NPR had reported that for black males, they tended to be more communicative with black doctors. They felt comfortable with them and accordingly tended to receive better care. While black women who died during childbirth at a rate 3 times higher than white women tend to see a black obstetrician or their primary care physician during pregnancy if they can find one. A Kaiser Family Foundation poll in October 2020, when 4 in 10 African Americans personally knew someone who had died from COVID-19, their survey showed that 7 in 10 African Americans believe that people are treated unfairly based on race or ethnicity when they seek medical care, driving doubts about the COVID-19 countermeasures amongst African Americans, higher than any other demographic group. 7 in 10 black respondents who said they were treated unfairly because of their race saw the discrimination as deliberate. And as reported in National Geographic, this is not just a feeling without a basis in fact or reality, for they found evidence that doctors have poorer communications with black patients than white ones, tending to dominate visits with black patients by talking rather than listening and connecting with patients, assuming that you're somebody that's just going to have to follow orders because you can't think for yourself. And with white patients, the conversation more often flowed 2 ways because of an expectation that this is someone I'm going to be able to talk with as an adult. And the result is that black patients often are reluctant to share whatever ails them, and more often than white patients leave the doctor's visits feeling unheard. Yet, broader than the structural arguments regarding race as the primary consideration, the medical profession itself has undergone great transformations since a half century ago. So that while some older doctors still abide by the old ways, maybe not making house calls, running around the big gigantic doctor's bag, of having a privately owned practice, today of the over 900,000 physicians, almost as many people that have died in COVID-19, 900,000 physicians in the U.S., less than half have a private practice. For the first time, hitting that mark in 2019. And according to Becker's Healthcare Reviews, tend to actually earn more by having a private practice. I'm thinking maybe some of those same rules kind of still apply. But there are great disincentives to do that. You have to open up an office, start your own business, go out, get equipment, figure out how to do that. Many, many times what you do is you find an older physician that's getting ready to retire and you become his assistant. Further, of those 900,000 doctors, only 7% of students in medical school are black. Only 7%. And those practicing medicine, only 5% are black. Small numbers. Small numbers. According to the American Association for Medical Colleges, among the U.S. medical schools that graduated 350 or more black or African American physicians between 1980, going way back in 2012, Howard University and Meharry Medical College had the highest number of graduates, with 2,451 and 2,005 graduates respectively. And in the top 5, 3 are HBCUs. Imagine that. With Morehouse College ranking at number 5. And what had traditionally been a male profession, especially for African Americans, finds that over 65% of black physicians are female. which the data suggests may have adverse outcomes on black males who may find a black doctor but may be unwilling to be as open with a woman physician about sensitive medical problems. In a demographic group that even before the pandemic experienced worse outcomes in every medical practice area than their white counterparts. So we have families, businesses, and also historically black colleges that had been acknowledged as one of the institutions that had been a key factor in contributing to success for African Americans. However, besides producing the most black physicians, many HBCUs are a dying breed and have an average 4-year graduation rate of only 23%, 4 times lower than the Ivy Leagues. So that an African American student might be able to say that they had gone to college, but not much more. And it is a fact, according to a recent Georgetown survey, that while over the span of a career, a high school graduate may earn around $1.3 million if you saved every penny that you earned and didn't spend it on anything, even food. Just the addition of a college degree will enable that college graduate to earn around 75% more over the course of a career. And Uncle Sam's grandmother instilled in him the importance of getting an education back in the days when we could only go to HBCUs, which indeed he did, even earning his PhD. And he actually had to drop out when he was getting his PhD. But he still wanted to get it, so he ended up making arrangements and going again to someplace else because he wanted to get that education. And Uncle Sam was even the first African-American member of the Board of Trustees at the Ford Motor Company. Not just because he was black, but because he was considered to be fully qualified. Jesse Owens didn't win an Olympic gold medal because he was black, any more than Simone Biles or Cassius Clay did. Why would success in the classroom be any different from success in sports? It's like a science. No pain, no gain. No cross, no crown. And that gives a person a certain sense of self-assurance in itself. But also, in terms of HBCUs that are struggling for money, just think about your car. If you do not put gas in the car, it's not going to gas itself. The government is not going to give you gas money. If you do not contribute back, pay it back to your college, where's your college going to get the money? They're going to have to beg someplace else. And that's going to affect outcomes. That's just the way that it works. And white colleges, like the one that I went to, have got an incredible endowment because alumni give back. On one day, back in the early 2000s, we actually raised over $1.5 million in one day from an email. 1.5. Morehouse College may make that in a year because the graduates of HBCUs don't pay back to the school. Be proud of your HBCU. Put a little gas in that tank. And if you had to guess what was the fourth pillar of success for African Americans, at least according to the Smithsonian Institution, besides everything else that Uncle Sam accomplished in his life, you have only to look at the title of his memoir, The Substance of Things Hoped For, a memoir of African American faith. And at least up to the 1980s, when there were black churches with standing room only all across America at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. And I still remember many a day just going over to Shiloh Baptist Church during the summer in the 1980s, and it was packed, even up in the balcony, standing room only. What former Morehouse College president, Benny Mays, had called the most segregated hour in America during Black History Month, when there were no countywide celebrations or programs at the library and specials on television. Black kids would not learn about Black history in public school, but rather on Sunday morning in Sunday school. And every Sunday with crossed, joined arms, we would sing, "We Shall Overcome." And the words of the song, just like they used to do in the civil rights movement, and the words of the song by James Weldon Johnson that spoke of a God of our weary years, a God of our silent tears, who had brought us thus far on the way, who had by his might led us into the light, with a prayer that he keep us in the path we pray. And probably most of African Americans don't even know the words of that or even the American national anthem. Yet with all Christian churches, regardless of racial and ethnic demographics, only drawing in about 3% from those unaffiliated with any religion each year, even less from children who used to be brought to church by their parents and baptized, resulting in a 12% drop in church membership over the past decade, even before the pandemic, that found 20% of churches closed forever, and with many that have reopened still trying to bring back old members, according to Pew Research Center. Roughly 8 in 10, 79% African Americans self-identify as Christian, as do 7 in 10 whites and 77% of Latinos. And most black Christians and about half of all African Americans are associated with the historically black Protestant churches, according to the study. In fact, fully 60% of black adults who go to religious services, whether every week or just a few times a year, say they attend religious services at places where most or all of the other attendees, as well as their senior clergy, are also black, according to the major study performed by the Pew Research Center just recently. Moreover, opposing racism is an integral part of religious identity for many black adults. And 3/4 of black Americans say that opposing racism is essential to their faith or sense of morality, a view that extends across faith traditions. Well, if you think that that is your religion and you believe that you're supposed to be doing your duty, well, you have that great commission. Maybe you need to bring some more people to your church. Jesus found 12. Why can't you find one? If everybody brought just one person to church, your church membership would double. Simple math. So it's not surprising that 47% of black churchgoers who attend black Protestant churches heard sermons that address topics such as race relations and racial inequality in the past 12 months. And a similar share say they heard sermons on voting, protesting, or other forms of political engagement. While by comparison, 35% of black Protestants who attend white Protestant churches or churches where some other race is the majority say they heard sermons on race relations, and 26% said they heard sermons on political engagement. So, black churches are definitely more political than others. But if that's what your religion is, then you need to be sharing it with others and bringing them to church. And then your church will grow and you'll be more effective because you have more people to do that thing. So how do you build a better black America whose problems, especially post-pandemic, are very similar to those afflicting every other American demographic group? I'm thinking that probably getting back to those fundamentals that the Smithsonian had identified back during the 2016 election in the Black History Museum. Because a people who forget their past are bound to repeat it. And it's always a better bet to bet on the sure thing. It certainly was a formula that worked for my Uncle Sam. And you look like an intelligent person. This briefing is unclassified. Until next time, you have a right to remain silent as you were. My name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am running for U.S. Congress. Next year, make the right choice, and we shall make America great again. Amen. And y'all come back now. Yeah. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.